Okay, I just wanted to make another entrance. Um, all right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this very exciting conversation between the church's racial justice group and um, the organization Center for Social Justice. Um, it is a conversation that happens implicitly and explicitly. We're all doing the work of justice, and we're all connected and all trying to bring um, a justice lens, to our work and bring people into activism and understand faith as activism and what it means to participate in the social gospel, which is basically we do the work. You know, um, the social gospel says we do the work, and the work of alleviating suffering, of bringing equity into the world, of making space for new voices to be centered, and ultimately to liberate folks. Um, and we do that in so many different ways. Um, the work is nonstop um, on all fronts, and but we are really lucky that none of us has to do it all, and I feel like we are moving into, uh, the age of really understanding that this work, this work is in an ecosystem, um, that we are all participating in. And I'm just really excited that, we are, orbiting more and more, and understanding how we honor the work that we're each doing, but also honor the work that we're doing together, and how much further we can get, when we do it that way. So, yeah, so welcome everyone. This is not my meeting, this is Paula's meeting. And Paula is one of our esteemed lay leaders. When all the stuff started happening with the United Methodist Church, um, Paula and the crazy eights, I mean, the group of eight, stepped in and really became the glue that held the church together. This predates me, but what I walked into were people who were in the caring business, and it was clear and evident. So let's see what comes out of this meeting. Thank you all for inviting me. Again, I'm just here. This is not my meeting. Paula Farmer, everybody.
Hello, hello. All right, so we're going to get started. This is an exciting time for me because this is one of the things that I know I have been looking forward to learning more about. And I know there have been many questions, not only within our racial justice group, but throughout the congregation about what's going on with the Center for Social Justice. So before we get to that, I want us to follow a little bit of our protocol, which we typically start with an icebreaker. And because there's so many people here, we won't do a one-on-one. We're going to do a waterfall in the chat. And we'll be checking in on that throughout. So I just put a question in the chat, which is, in light of the tenor of the country, please share, there's a typo in there. It should say thing that you are hopeful about. I want to bring some hope into this. And it could be anything in the world that you are hopeful about in this moment. All right, so we have police reform, how open-minded the young folks are about gender fluidity. Yay. That love prevails. Vaccinations. Let's see. Hopeful that harmony seems possible with the climate. The price of Dungeness crabs dropping. Oh my goodness, I love it. That means we're going to have us a crab boil, a crab feast somehow, virtual.
At
San
Marvin's
Francisco,
house.
at Marvin's house, yes.
In the hot tub.
In the hot tub.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, okay. That's the true race and social equity. We're hopeful about Glide's future and the social racial justice that we're doing. Tim is hopeful about Glide is hopeful that Glide is replicated across the country and begins these conversations. Rabbi Michael is the miracle of the vaccine in 9 months and the potential for a pivot towards life and collective justice work. Pam, possible sea change in policing accountability. We have Linda, greater health throughout the world, praying for India for sure, and Michigan. Chandra, hopeful that more of us will be willing to meet in the middle. And this last one is that police will be disarmed for traffic problems soon. Yes, and that children are empowered to lead us in this work. So that's a lot of hopes and wishes. And I wanted to ground us in that place because we had been hoping for this Center for Racial Justice and we got it. And now we're going to hear a little bit more about it. I'm going to share my screen really quickly so that we can center ourselves around our agenda. Here we go. Can everybody see that? So today we just did our check-in, and then I wanted to go through our initiative so that anybody who is not a part of the racial justice group, but and or if you're a part of the Center for Social Justice and you're not familiar with the racial justice team, we'll be visiting those very briefly. And then we'll have the introduction of our speaker, which Miguel will be our main speaker. However, we have his team here, and they will all be contributing to the conversation and also answering questions with their direct expertise. And then we'll have a Q&A and wrap up. So that's where we're going. So these are our agreements. And as you read them over, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the Racial Justice Group's mission is. Glide's Racial Justice Group educates and seeks liberation for the oppressed and marginalized, with emphasis on BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, in order to realize the beloved community that we are called to be. Is there anything that anybody needs to add to this list in order to feel safe in this space? All right, assuming that's a no, so we're gonna go for it. All right, first up, we have, and I let me give a disclaimer here as well.
Take out that photo. You scare me.
If this scares you, you need to remove it from the website.
Oh Lord, who put that up there? Can you just put half of it? I mean, take out the face and put the text. That's wrong, Paula. Wrong, Paula.
Well, sir, I suggest you talk to communications about your landing page.
Oh no, I didn't even shave. That's horrible. Okay, go
we
on.
love you regardless, Miguel. It's no harm, no foul. Trust me. So Miguel was born and raised in San Francisco's Mission District and grew up steeped in community activism and has dedicated himself to public policy at both the local and national levels for many years. He was the first person in his large family to attend college, and he continued on to pursue 2 graduate degrees. Before coming to Glide, Miguel served as a policy advisor for President Bill Clinton and Vice President Al Gore, Deputy District Director for Congresswoman Barbara Lee,
that's right.
Director of Boards and Commissions for San Francisco's Mayor Gavin Newsom, and Director of the Intergovernmental Affairs for Oakland Mayor Ronald Dellums. These opportunities have gifted him the experience to know how to translate vision into policy, dreams into appropriations, and disparate voices into coalitions. And finally, he has broad experience in managing people and resources, having overseen 3 not-for-profits and countless volunteers. Miguel knows the value of communication when it comes to achieving long and short range goals and objectives. And currently, Miguel is the Senior Director of the GLIDE Center for Social Justice, where he oversees the expansion of the CSJ's work, including growing GLIDE's advocacy and policy-related efforts, community engagement and volunteer program, drop-in legal clinic, community leaders and internship programming, and so much more. He also served on GLIDE's board of trustees for 5 years before being accepted into his current role. So we welcome Miguel Bustos. And Miguel, could you also, before you dive into your presentation, introduce your team?
Yes. There are two folks that are missing. Wes is actually at a hearing for City Hall. So our item is currently up. So he'll be joining us in a bit. And Hannah had a doctor's appointment, so she couldn't change it. But we have Eric Arguello, wave Eric, who is now our manager for advocacy. We have the incomparable Isoke Fime, who is our maven of transformational learning, and our incredible brother in crime, Rabbi Michael Lezak, who does our justice and reconciliation work. These are the beauties that make magic happen at CSJ. So you'll be hearing from them in a bit. So I just wanted to give you all just a lot of love for inviting us to be here. Some of you may have recalled that when I first joined the GLIDE staff almost 3 years ago, I went to the Better Me meeting after one Sunday, and sort of shared with you some of the thinking that we were thinking about for a CSJ, and I realized that we didn't have anything to offer you, and I left that meeting deflated because I felt, God, there's such an energized group, and yet we were still thinking about what the next phase of CSJ would be. Now, I always say that Cecil Williams was the first director for the Center for Social Justice, right? Even though there was no bona fide center, he was the director for social justice. And then, obviously when I was on the board, we knew that we had to do something to begin to fill the void. As Cecil got older, it was harder for him to do the marches and things like that. So we decided to create a center, and blessed that James took that over, and he began to put the components of what that phase of the Center for Social Justice would look like. And then I was asked to come in and then to look at another phase. So this is Social Justice 3.0, we'll just say. But that meeting, I felt deflated because we hadn't realized our potential yet. And it took a while for me to get a sense for people inside of GLIDE about what do they think of the Center for Social Justice. Some people were like, we need it. Some were like, we don't know what you do. So there was a whole range of people's perspective on what the Center for Social Justice was all about. Well, all that has changed, because what we're doing and what I think we've done is we have begun a movement of justice that includes all of us. And so we have put pillars together at the Center for Social Justice that we're going to share with you that is going to hopefully rock your world. And hopefully you're going to be just as excited as we are around the work we do. But we cannot, everything you're going to hear from us, know that we cannot do it alone. That it's going to require your love and your support. And the way I look at it is that CSJ is an offshoot of the church, right? You preach about justice, and we go out and do the legs for it in many different ways. But what we do in all our work, we tell people, if you like what we do, come on a Sunday. Join the church on a Sunday. So we hope that CSJ is able to feed our activists to the church, and hopefully we can be soon. We'll be together to be able to do more of that. So think of it as a circle that is unbreaking, but all powerful. And so that's how we see the relationship with the church. So I want you to think of the Center for Social Justice in 3 ways. One, through the incredible work that Michael and Isoke will share with you. We believe that it's important to change hearts and minds, because if we want justice, that's what we have to do, because that's actually what's more sustaining. When you're able to change a person's perspective of themselves and how they see the world in a more just way, as Michael likes to say, put on the glide goggles, then your life is changed forever. And then you're able to go and be an evangelist of justice, right? So think of that as one thing. We want to change the hearts and minds. Then we have a middle part, which is really about the work that Eric is doing around movement building. So how do we get those people that have changed their hearts, or people who've been with us all the time, to become active in this movement building that we want to do, right? So there's a bunch of activities that you'll see that will be aiming towards that. The third pillar, if you don't want to come with us willingly and you don't want your heart and mind to be changed willingly, then what we'll do is we'll change policies and laws, and you're going to have to be on our side, right? And so that's the third piece that Wes will share with you on how we're going to change the system that has been based on racism for so many years. And keep in mind that through the common denominator in everything we do, whether it's, changing hearts and minds, building that movement of advocacy, and changing policies and laws, fundamental to all of that is justice around race. That informs the work we do. So we may not call it out explicitly, but know that we are truth seekers and truth tellers when it comes to racial justice. So the way our work is done is into 4 policy areas. We have homelessness and housing, which is including expanding affordability of housing, shortened periods of homelessness, racial justice housing disparities, and we're trying to alleviate the sufferings of those who are experiencing homelessness. So that's homelessness and housing. The second is around community health. And most prominent is our harm reduction work. So getting GLIDE to be a safe injection site, trying to decriminalize drugs, providing access to mental health, to expanding food security and nutritional programs. And Wes will share with some exciting work we're doing now, we're doing statewide. And the third call out in terms of policy is around racial and justice and reconciliation. So ending systemic racism, advancing truth, justice, and reconciliation, and eliminating racial disparities in the criminal justice system. Wes will share with you on some pretty incredible things that we've been doing, including shutting down 850 Bryant, which GLIDE's Center for Social Justice had a huge part in that. The final one is our work with women and children and families of color. We want to expand pathways to economic independence, promote family safety and resilience, and support children's health, well-being, and development. So those are the 4 areas that you'll also hear about in our work. It took us a while to get to this point, but I cannot tell you how proud I am of this team that give it their whole heart. And, it was a rocky start because we were trying to figure it out. But now you look at the team and you're going to hear from them and you're going to hear them soar. And I hope that as we talk about the work we do, that you begin to see yourself in that work. That the work that happens is going to rely on all of us together. So we are twins, I think, Marvin and I mean, we just did a shared, although he's handsomer than I am, we did a shared a thing last week with the staff on the George Floyd verdict. And that was awesome to partner with Marvin on that. So please see yourself in what we say and what we're sharing with you, because that's how we're going to change the world, as Cecil used to say, right? He always said, we're going to change the world. He didn't say we're going to change San Francisco. He said, we are going to change the world. And I noticed that someone put down replicate glide in other places. Well, it was interesting. Marvin, I think you were preaching when I brought my friend Susan Rice, Ambassador Susan Rice, and her husband and her daughter to glide. And one of the things she said when we left the church, she said, you need to bring this to DC. This needs to be replicated. And I said, well, first of all, there's a lot of bad juju over there in DC right now. You need to get Marvin to go do an exorcism over there because it's crazy before we even think about doing that. But it just goes to show that together we really can make some beautiful things happen. So I'm going to shut up now and allow the beautiful people, the rainmakers and the miracles in motion, as I call them, share their work with you. And we'll start with Marvin, and then we'll go Marvin and Isoke. I mean, not Marvin, Michael and Isoke. You guys look more alike than probably me and you, Marvin. We'll go with Michael and Isoke, and they'll share with you about some of the work they're doing. And then we'll go to Eric, who will talk about some of his most recent community engagement work, and then his plans for the advocacy work. And then hopefully by that time, Wes will be joining us, and he'll share with you about some exciting policy things we're doing. So Michael and Isoke, kick it off.
Isoke, you okay if I start?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Miguel, I love that you call me Marvin. One, because like, this Marvin and my father, who has died 17 years ago, was also Marvin. So just summoning him and channeling all the Marvins to this holy screen. It's great to see your faces and see your names. I want to just start off by giving big love to all of you for sustaining church and community and congregation through the brutality of COVID, the deep pain of not being able to be proximate with one another and to rub shoulders and give hugs and sing together, and just know that church from afar is major and awesome and has fed thousands, and know that it can't quite capture what happens usually in that sanctuary. So for all of you who have continued to show up and build that machine. Number two, like Miguel said, Glide Church is a key restorative engine of, I think, of my soul and of all of us. And I can't imagine doing the work that I and we are doing in the Center for Social Justice without the mighty engine that you guys create on a weekly and daily basis. So thank you. I'll talk on different levels, but maybe start off by just talking about this word pilgrimage, which if I go back to my congregational rabbi job many moons ago, I would take my congregants on 2-week-long journeys to Israel and Palestine. And the way that we over time defined what a pilgrimage is it's a journey of personal or communal spiritual discovery that forever changes you. Once you have that experience, you have new goggles, you see the world through new lenses. And I think so much about the work that Isoke and I do is about building pilgrimages for individuals, for groups, for families, into Glide and the Tenderloin, to Alabama, and conceivably to other places, with the hopes of rewiring people's brains and souls and seeing the world more like y'all do and more like Glide does on a daily basis. So maybe I'll start by talking about the work we're doing now currently with UCSF. I think most of you know that we've taken 3 justice pilgrimages to Alabama over the past 3 years. The most recent one was in March of 2020, just as COVID was kind of beginning to crash over America. We were there with 110 people, give or take, including 25 senior leaders from UCSF. And we took them to look head on at inequities in healthcare and racism baked into the system that has kept disparities prevalent for 400 years. And we visited a plantation with 5th generation owners. We visited a rural hospital in a county where kids are getting hookworm these days, and looked at just these brutal American stories, and then went to Montgomery to Brian Stevenson and Equal Justice Initiative's museum and memorial that tells the birth story of how individuals and families were brought from Africa and built the slave trade, and how that morphed into modern day new Jim Crow and the prevalence of people of color in jails. And we would say onto the prevalence of poor people of color, on the streets of the Tenderloin and across America. So Isoke and I have been meeting every week, every Wednesday night with these 25 leaders from UCSF to take spiritual inventory of how their souls are doing, to connect the dots from what we saw on the ground in Alabama and those brutal stories to the brutal stories at UCSF, to the systemic racism at UCSF, and to the individual acts of racism. And I would say we loosely built out a spiritual justice congregation for this interfaith group of people. And we're bit by bit, I would say, building out a truth and justice and reconciliation process for them. And these weekly meetings are mighty and powerful, and blessed with Isoke's voice and soul, and people talking deeply about really painful stories that they experience there. In the midst of this, I will say there was a brutal and terrible story I won't go into much, 2 months after we got back, where an African-American father at the Benioff Children's Hospital was after some challenges upstairs in his daughter's office. Both of them were homeless. They called security. He went down to have a smoke outside. He tried to come back into the hospital, and the 10 UCPD and SFPD officers had him on the ground with a gun pulled to him at here in San Francisco. And this kind of horrified our group because they had not heard about it. And through that, three of the people on our group built out a chancellor's campus safety task force to rethink policing on all 19 campuses for UCSF. And they've come to Glide, to the Center for Social Justice, to have us help them rethink what it means to build out safety and healing at a hospital. And we're piloting a program that we started 2 weeks ago. The second version of it is doing in a few weeks, that we're calling Healers at the Gate. 25 people at a time are coming from UCSF across lines, from campus safety to nurses to social workers to chaplains, are coming into the Tenderloin for 3 days of immersive learning. And we're bringing our frontline staff and Glide clients to teach and to tell stories of de-escalation and resilience and storytelling and all of Glide's values. So that is feeding me, and I think Isoke, on an incredibly powerful level. And there's going to be 3 cohorts, and that's just the pilot. And we're imagining thinking about all of these campuses and how we can deepen the impact to rethink policing at the UCSF, which is the second largest economic engine in San Francisco. They have 30,000 employees, and how might we change that system and maybe infiltrate the whole UC system? So minor chutzpah here. On top of that, we build out journeys into the Tenderloin for individuals and families and schools and congregations from around the Bay Area to come in for 2 hours or 2 days to get proximate, to quote Brian Stevenson, of getting proximate to people and to neighborhoods that people might have been afraid to come to, and think about how that journey into the Tenderloin might change them. We continue to think about future journeys to Alabama and what groups might look like that we might bring, and have some small plans, or small/large plans, about what the next journey might look like, and we're cooking some visions behind the scenes for that. And there's other minor projects. We have a partnership with the Auburn Seminary in New York City, which is a social justice seminary, with 4 organizations, Glide-like organizations around the country, to think about racial and economic justice issues, and seeing what we can learn with and from one another. And maybe I will pause there, Isoke. I'm sure I'm missing a few things, but maybe turn it over to you to see what you want to add on to what I've said. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Rabbi. I think I'll just have there be a moment and let everybody breathe a couple of breaths. You just took in a lot. And I want to kind of zoom out a bit and talk about how we hold this philosophically. One of the ideas that we draw on is the idea that liberation is both the undoing of oppressive structures, the dismantling of oppressive structures, and the undoing of the effects that people walk around with. we all walk around having internalized not only the content of oppression, but the mechanisms that keep it going. So for example, scapegoating. Scapegoating is a very, almost any oppression you look at, you can deconstruct it by looking at scapegoating. It just means that we empty out what is intolerable in ourselves onto something or someone else, and then we can attack it in them, right? So I will make, my fear of my own primitivity, my own dirtiness, my own evil, wicked thoughts, I just empty them out onto you, or you, or you, or you, or any number of unsuspecting people or groups. And that tendency to scapegoat is shared across human cultures. But when you're looking at a particular ism, it looks a certain way, right? If you're looking at sexism or racism or homophobia or anti-Semitism, there are certain things that it has a specificity to it. But we think that we need the work of people who are out there, like even on our team, the people who are doing policy work, the people who are dealing with how do we deconstruct these institutions that perpetuate inequity, et cetera. That's a very important part. But the work that Michael and I do, I think leans most heavily on this internal piece. Not just individually though, but in groups and in organizations. It's kind of weird because like we're looking at how can you change your culture, starting with the self? How can you unearth in yourself those unwanted aspects of domination that you may have taken on, that you likely took on? So we see liberation as being, well, first of all, oppression. If you imagine this as a table or a structure that has two pillars, the top being oppression. To bring down oppression, you have to work on the institutional, systematic side, and you have to work on the individual cultural side, et cetera. So that's one thing I think it's important for you to know, that we're trying to address this in a holistic way. The second thing is that we really want to try to set up the conditions that allow people to do this work without blame or shame. Because we don't need to tell you, it's like a minefield, particularly racism. But all of the isms, it's like a minefield. And so people come together with a lot of fear, a lot of trepidation, a lot of frustration. And so a big part of our work is how do you set the conditions that allow people to settle in and really be learners? I know that there's a lot of controversy over the word safety. These days, people, oh, we need brave spaces, not safe spaces. I don't know about that. I'll just say this much. As a person who got beat up on a lot as a kid and who has a very tender heart in certain places, I want a safe place to do my work. So I'm not saying that that's the only way that we do it, but that it matters to me that I create what I want for myself, which is a place where it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not know. And most importantly, it's okay to begin to imagine that we are more than these identities, that we are divine beings who can overcome. We can overcome through our divinity. And so that to me is the most exciting part about our work is like, how do I tap into my own divinity, lift up Michael's, lift up the divinity that's in any group that we're dealing with. And that takes courage in this day and age where people really are, the secular mind isn't necessarily available for that. But I'm willing to get in trouble because I don't think these small little ego selves that we are can do it. I think it does take the parts of us that are angelic, that are bold and connected to something bigger. So yeah, I think that's I know there's more, but that's enough for now.
Isoki, can you just quickly, and then we'll go to Eric, can you just share New Bridges with the group?
Yes, yes. Okay, so about a year and a half ago, I showed my granddaughter, who was 22 at the time, a student at Sonoma State, this video that we made back in 1989. Somewhere like that. Somebody's got a motor going in the background. Okay, thank you. And I showed her this promotional video of a camp where we used to take 120 young people to camp for a week, and each day we'd work on a different ism. And the idea was for people to develop community and to develop the ability to have we hear this all the time, hard conversations with each other. She saw that video and she said, "Grandma, we need this now. Nothing's changed. This is still that way right now. People can't talk. People, are canceling each other and blah, 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 blah." She said, "And I feel like this is my work. I wish you'd bring it back." So CSJ, last summer, we launched our first cohort of New Bridges, which is, we're still trying to work out how many hours, because with Zoom, we really don't want people to get Zoom fatigue. So we aren't able to give it as many hours as we'd like, but it's an opportunity for people to come and learn a particular approach. Some of what I've said about what it takes to be a good ally, what it takes to undo the internalized oppression, what it takes to hold space for each other while we rage or storm or cry or just are frozen. So it's very much working with the emotion so that people feel more empowered to go out and do the work. It's not formulaic at all. So we're going to start our third cohort in mid-June. So if you're interested, or if you know people who might be interested, send them our way.
Thank you, Isoki. That's yes,
thanks for remembering that.
Yeah, no, that's a big piece of what you do. And we're also going to be looking at apprentices, so on how to teach this, because someone talked about replicating.
Yes.
This is a program we want to teach people how to train them to be trainers in this model. So please, I hope you see some of yourselves doing that. Eric, can you sort of share with work some of you're doing on the monthly educational activities? Sure. And then how are you going to see your new role as advocacy manager, and where people on this Zoom could participate in?
Sure. Thank you, Miguel. We've been very busy in a lot of areas. My role really worked closely with, Isoke, with Michael, with Wes, Hannah. It's very interchangeable. One of the things that we've been doing recently is building up our events that we have monthly, and we have them listed out, scheduled out all the way through November of this year. I don't know if some of you may have attended some of these, but they're events, they're workshops, but they're very transformative. We've been working very close with Isoke, who has given us some assistance with the titles and facilitating these groups. Some that we've done in the past is the African American Heritage Month. 5 things you can do right now to cure anti-Blackness. For Women's History Month, building alliances across genders. We just did a Justice Poetry Jam where we had several poet laureates attend. Janice was one of them. And then we're also working on Asian American, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month in May, where we're going to bring a diversity of Asians to talk about the diversity. We have Pacific Islanders from the Asian community, from the Japanese community, who's going to be talking about who they are and how they fit into this broader, concept, and to talk about how can we help with the violence against the Asian community currently. So we're going to continue those, for the rest of the year. So we'll get that information out for you guys. One of the things that my role is and it's the main focus for me is, as the advocacy manager, is to raise the voices of marginalized community, Black, Indigenous, people of color, which includes, our clients, it includes our staff, our volunteers, and the community in general. And we're going to do that by really first looking at our infrastructure and capacity to be able to have the tools to do that. I've been meeting with a lot of coalitions out in the community, re-engaging community members, working with new ones, and working with staff to make sure that we're able to, to raise these voices, to advocate, and also to build capacity within the community for the people that we work with, for the people that we want to raise the voices for. I know Wesley has been doing some trainings. I'll be working with him and doing some of those trainings in the future. How to speak at a hearing. A lot of our community members have never spoken at a hearing, or a lot of our clients haven't spoken at a hearing. It's something very scary for a lot of people and have never done it before. Or how to speak to the press. Housing 101. So we want to educate, everyone so they could become social justice warriors for themselves and for the community. We're looking to work around race and equity. We're working with a coalition called Race and Social Equity in All Planning. One of the biggest things that I'm working on right now is with development that's coming into the Tenderloin, which, because of redlining and because the way, developers that are focused on making a profit do not really focus on really housing, our folks in the TL, our homeless population, our working class folks. So working with the developers and creating, development that's much more beneficial to the local community, making sure that it's equitable. We've attended hearings and coalitions. 45 members have come out to speak, to really push that issue to the planning department around race and equity in development. So we're going to keep building on that, and continue to work and work with all you guys here, to do that work, to do that advocacy also in the future.
Thank you, Eric. So there's going to be moments where you'll see Eric after Sunday celebration, or maybe if Marvin would give him a couple of minutes to speak, asking people to sign up, whether to sign petitions or whether to sign up to speak at hearings. One of the things that CSJ has been doing intentionally is lifting up the voices. We cannot speak on behalf of anybody. We prefer for people to speak up on their own behalf. And so Wes will be able to share with you in a sec on how many of Glide's staff, like folks in harm reduction who have experienced being in prison, have been speaking out at hearings. And now they're the ones that are actually changing the laws and policies around criminal justice. So it's amazing just to have people do that. So we hope that you all will sign up, and you'll see Eric hounding you. But he also will be doing trainings, like you said, on how to speak, and he will give you talking points and will tell you, what to emphasize. But a lot of great things that are happening. Wes, thank you for joining us. Can you share with the group? This is a Congregational Life Committee and the Racial Justice Committee. So a lot of good people from the church. This is Wesley Saver, our policy manager.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for setting aside some time to meet with us at CSJ today. It's really great that we have this opportunity to engage and get you further involved in some of the good work that's being done through Glide. Again, I'm Wesley Saver, and I'm the policy manager, and I started at Glide in October of 2019. And at this point, we've got kind of a lot of things in the works, both in Sacramento that would impact folks statewide. And then there's a lot of work being done at the local level too. So different areas that you can get plugged in. Some of what we have going on right now, I'll start with what Miguel mentioned through what we've been doing with our harm reduction department. They've been focusing on weighing in at public health hearings locally in the city, but also next week we're participating in a week of advocacy with a coalition called End the Epidemics. And End the Epidemics is focused on curtailing the coexisting pandemics, syndemics of HIV, AIDS, hepatitis C, and drug overdose. And we're working on a budget request that would better fund all the syringe service programs in California. When that budget was developed of $3 million to help provide the necessary supplies for organizations statewide, there are only 30 syringe service providers. Now that number has since doubled and there are 60, but that budget has been flat funded. So it's really important that our syringe service program, our outreach providers, folks who at Glide currently are engaging with people who use drugs or other folks who need medical treatment and testing, education and outreach really benefit from our opt-in van that covers the city every day, or people in the shelter in place hotels. They, as providers, will be speaking up to our elected officials in these meetings next week, along with myself, and we'll be elevating that request and some other priorities to help curtail those medical issues that folks are facing in California. The following week, and this is something that I'd like to invite all of you to get involved with, we are a part of an organization called the California Hunger Action Coalition, and SHOC has been around for almost 30 years, and it's a coalition that consists of food banks, food providers, organizations such as Glide that really do their best to meet the missing meals of our community members who may be missing out on food or are nutrition deficient, address issues of food security in California. And so taking place May 10th through May 14th, partners from across California are going to be mobilizing to advocate for policies and state funding priorities to address issues of hunger and food security in our state. And there's going to be a number of different activities. These include an advocacy training. So all of you will get, I'll be conducting that at the local level. There's going to be a kickoff event with a lot of speakers and awards presented to advocates and legislators who in recent years have really stood up on behalf of issues around hunger. There's going to then be the virtual meetings with legislators. Hannah has been scheduling those diligently, and we're going to have them every day of the week. So elected officials can hear from their constituents. And then there's going to be a closing SHOC. SHOC is the California Hunger Action Coalition, virtual social gathering. And that's going to be an opportunity for community members, advocates, providers, just to come together and build some community around these issues that we're helping address. And Glide is really, as you know, plays a tremendous role of that in San Francisco. And we're very proud to be a newly joined member, to be a chair of Hunger Action Week this year, and to help champion some of these issues at the state level. So after this meeting, I'll be sure to pass along the registration form link, and all of you are welcome to sign up, and I'll conduct a training with you on how we can get you plugged in for Hunger Action Week. Eric did mention that I conduct those similar trainings as well. I've been working with the residents at UCSF in a similar way that Rabbi Michael and Asoke have been working with them. I've been helping with their pediatrics to further empower them to utilize their medical professional opinions on how to weigh in on items that come before committee in San Francisco, so that they can help inform some of the policy proposals that the city are putting forth. And they've been really useful in weighing in on issues such as this shelter-in-place hotels, and helping inform the supervisors on how these are really tremendously effective interventions, keeping people housed so that these people who have not been stabilized are now having opportunities to receive medical care on a consistent, uninterrupted basis to address some ongoing health concerns that they may have. Whereas before, things like treating hepatitis C, if someone's living on the street, if they are subject to a sweep by the police or DPW, they get their tent taken, they may lose their access to their medication, and they have to begin that process all over again. And that's really cumbersome. It's damaging to the individual, and it's costly because of having to start that round of treatment all over again. And then let's see if there's anything else that I can give an example of. We have, and then the advocacy around the shelter in place hotels, I think is something that we're very much involved in at a local level. I gave some examples of things going on at the state level, but we're focusing on ending poverty tows. There's a hearing before the San Francisco, the SFMTA next week on May 4th, where we will be pushing to end some specific types of tows that really impact people who are experiencing circumstances of poverty, but those same tows really reinforce the poverty that they're living in as well. So that would be something too, where people would be encouraged to call in to the SFMTA and support to speak out against these towing practices. And you'll be getting a notification about that as well, along with some talking points in case you're interested in participating.
Thank you, Wes. And now I hope you all could imagine this. It'll be like a Friday or a Monday or a Wednesday when there'll be 2 buses stopping in front of Glide, and there'll be several of you and many others joining that bus, and maybe we can get the ensemble to join us. And we're riding to Sacramento to literally bombard, not the way they did on January 6th, but go and meet with legislators on issues that are important to Glide. So keep that in your mind. We want to begin to take busloads of people, or consider yourselves marching with us from Glide to City Hall, where we're all there going to speak on behalf of an item that is important to Glide. We'll be singing our way down the street. We'll be chanting. We'll be marching. We're doing it old Cecil style, right? Old school style. So we had plans to do this stuff before COVID. We priced out the buses. We priced out lunches. I asked him to price all that out, and then COVID hit. And so we had to pivot. But I hope y'all, in this meantime, go get some good walking or marching shoes, because we're going to be hitting the streets again, just like the old days. We're going to let our light shine. So I hope all of you see yourselves in that. So you heard from our team. And the last thing I want to say is that when I worked for President Clinton, he always said, hire people that are a lot smarter than you. Well, my team is a lot smarter than me. And I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of everything they're doing, because they're brilliant, brilliant people. And when they go out to do the work, it's not on CSJ, it's behalf of the entire Glide family, which includes you. So we're open for any questions that you may have, but we look forward to this partnership and getting into good trouble. So I hope you are too.
So as far as asking questions, thank you, Miguel and Isoke and Wes and Rabbi Lizak, and hold on, I'm listening, Eric, for that lovely update on all the things that you're doing, which is so exciting. As we go forward with the Q&A, I'll ask you if you want to ask your question directly, to go ahead and raise your hand. If you don't know where the hand raising button is, it's under your, I think it's under your reactions. And then if you are not comfortable speaking into the space, go ahead and type your question in the chat and I'll make sure it gets answered. And if we run out of time, then we'll make sure that the team gets those questions and we can update you later. So go ahead and get those hands raised. Okay, so I shall start. Let's see what I wanted to know from Rabbi Lizak. You talked about the walking through the Tenderloin with different groups and factions, and I wanted to know, as an educator, how young are the groups that you take around? Is there a cap now, and are you thinking about younger children? And if so, what would be the differences in the types of things that they would see?
Thanks so much for asking, Paula. Everything's pretty much been frozen through COVID. God willing, at the beginning of the next school year, we'll be able to bring school groups in. I brought third and fourth graders in, and I brought 12th graders and college students, all across. And I think with ample planning and the right partners, anything is really possible. So if, you have your educator cap on and you want to think about what the fall might look like, I would love to build that out. And often I will go to a school ahead of time, or either over Zoom or in person, and like build a relationship so that when the kids come on site, they know me already. And then we've built out a curriculum that often involves a walking tour of the Tenderloin. Again, age dependent, but it could involve a walking tour of the Tenderloin with Del Seymour, serving meals, packing harm reduction kits, and then some learning and processing about what it's like to be there. Helpful?
Super helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. Of course.
I know this is not a shy group, so we're family. So if you think we're crazy, then let us know too. If you think we're off the mark. Yes, Tatiana.
I had a question, and I think it's a little bit for Paula on behalf of the projects that we're all working on. And Linda and I had a great meeting with Wes, and we also had another meeting with Kenneth Kim prior to that, and just for the project. And I'm just wondering if should we be coordinating more or better, or is there a way that would be good for a communication flow to happen? I understand like the request to show up for the marches or show up and get on the bus or do that makes total sense to me as a team, but with the other projects that we're working on,
that needs support, you mean?
Yeah.
Or need support or yeah.
And Tatiana, could you say what you're working on?
Oh, Linda and I are working on Black trans women's issues, and we've been exploring ways to work with the community and support that group in particular.
So that's great, because I don't know if it was Wes or Eric and I were talking about the trans community, about engaging them. I think Wes also was talking about St. James Infirmary. So you know what? I always say, the more people we can coordinate, the better. Then we don't have to be reinventing the wheel. So we're going to be hiring a community engagement manager. That is Eric's old job, that will help, and as well as Eric will help with coordinating with all of you, wherever you feel comfortable and want us to engage. Know that we are so open and willing, and just to do the magical work. So we can do that.
And Tatiana, can I ask if I'm clarifying this correctly? Part of the question that we had when we talked to Kenneth Kim was, if a particular subset of our group is working on or researching a project, is it okay for them to go ahead and reach out to you, or do you need a middleman? Or now that we know what your roles and responsibilities are individually?
Please feel free to reach out to any one of us. We are not hierarchical at the Center for Social Justice. So if you feel inclined to say, hey, I want to reach out to Isoke and learn more about New Bridges, because maybe we can get some church people to sign up, or maybe have a separate one just for church. Absolutely. Our team meets every Monday at 10 o'clock. And we talk about all the new things that are happening. We talk about the requests that are being asked of us. And so, or we talk about, we had a discussion before I met with Paula, and everybody was like, yes, we want to coordinate. So feel free to reach out to whoever.
Thank you. Other questions in the room? Well, I have one for Isoke.
I have a question, Paula.
Yeah, and so does Pam.
Oh, Pam, I didn't.
I'll let Pam go first.
It's okay, I'm sitting over in the corner. But speaking of coordination, I know that Barbara Lee and Cory Booker are working on an initiative for reconciliation and reparation. And since I know that Miguel is strongly connected to those people, I was just wondering if your group or the church in general, all of us, should have some way of connecting and supporting that.
Yeah, we are still talking about how do we engage, but I think we can meet. Maybe we send a delegation of Glide people to the Congresswoman's office here in the district and meet with them about how we can get involved.
And on that note, also, could Linda or Tom chime in with what Racial Justice Group is doing? Because I will say that as you went through your initiatives, there are so many that are in alignment with R6. And it, like you said, it doesn't make sense to recreate the wheel on all of these. And of course, there are some things that might be essential that, you know, there's a nimble movement around things, and then there's other things that are going to take time. So if Linda or Tom could speak to what we're doing or what we're trying to do.
Thanks, Paula. Tom, yes, Tom just tagged me, so here I am. So we're, I was going to follow up with what Pam said. We're, Tom and I are a team of two so far working on the issue of reparations. And so we've been in contact with the San Francisco Human Rights Commission, and also are trying to branch out to other parts of the mayor's office as it relates to the Dream Keepers initiative. And so we're wondering if you're doing any, might be doing anything with that. And we are in the process of making or attempting to make contact. We've reached out to the co-founders or co-leaders of the governor's task force on reparations. And they've just actually, it became, you know, it was a bill that was passed in October, but they've actually just gotten started. Their first meeting isn't until June 15th. So we're trying to see what it is that we might be able to do to, you know, in support of them and getting involved. So that, and then we're just being on the case on a regular basis with Congress people about HR 40. And the bill that is was originally introduced to the House of Representatives in 1989 and has been brought forth each year since then, and has finally gained some traction in 2019. And so it's finally inching its way to the House floor. And so we're just, you know, doing what we do, which is calling Congress people, writing Congress people, and trying to do what we can to move that forward. And it's at its as of April 14th, it's starting to make some real progress toward getting to the floor.
So Linda, just to chime in on the governor's thing, we could ask Elmi Barmejo, who is the governor's director here in San Francisco. She manages his Northern California office, about getting in contact with the committee. So that let's have a conversation on how we can do that. That's an easy thing.
Can you
Great.
number just real quick?
Sorry,
Was there a bill number that you mentioned? If you did,
it's HR 40.
HR 40. Okay, thank you.
So when it comes to some of the federal stuff, you know, we were very conscious about taking steps. And so locally we were well known, and there wasn't much of a lift, right? And then when Wes came on board last year, or in the end of 19, he then was very deliberate about looking at statewide legislation that was an easy win for us, or sort of low hanging fruit, so that we can get a lay of the land on who's doing what. And so he's been very, very successful in that. So we're trying to expand our statewide stuff. And we believe maybe in a year or maybe a year and a half from now, we'll begin to look at federal stuff. But we had to take baby steps. There's going to be issues that completely align with the 4 issue areas that I laid out earlier. But then there'll be some issues that are not aligned with that. Doesn't mean they're not important, but we also realize we can't be all things for all people, because then we're just so spread out. So we're trying to stay true to those 4 issue areas.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean that we cannot say, hey, this is who you should talk to, or if the church really wants to get involved with this, like with the governor's task force, then let's get Elmi on a Zoom. And she loves Glide. She grew up in San Francisco. Her family started with Tommy's bar down in the Sunset. So they're longtime San Franciscans. But yeah, those things we can definitely be helpful with.
Okay, thank you, Miguel. And who specifically on the team would be good for Tom and I to interface with or contact?
For Elmi, I'll help you do that because I have the
Okay.
relationship with her.
Terrific, thank you.
Mhm.
Just to follow on that, before we started mentioning this, you mentioned Barbara Lee and Cory Booker and some work in Washington, and I'm just curious where that is, and is there something to do to talk to Representative Lee?
Yeah, so what I would suggest is let's just set up a meeting and we can do it via Zoom to Tatiana, who is in charge of her district office here in Oakland. And she could help sort of hear how Glide can get involved. Absolutely.
That'd be great.
I think it's okay. You were about to ask a question.
Yeah, my question was, what are some ways that you all can dream of partnering with us? What are some things you want? Like a couple of things have been mentioned, and of course, keeping in mind that we are limited staff and, we have a limited scope, but what are some ways that you can imagine us being, partnering well with you?
Fiona?
Yeah, I'm just, I'm very inspired by everything you're all doing, and it's really beautiful. Yeah, and just what comes to mind for me is just having more conversations like this, and just coming together a bit more, because it feels, having this conversation now, it feels like we've been operating separately and maybe duplicating things we don't have to. And for us to just have these lines of communication open more just feels like something I would like, because we this current the word's not coming to me, but this current group, a congressional group working on racial justice, it started about a year ago, I think. And we've been kind of just figuring out what we're about for a while. Yeah, so anyway, I mean, I would love to be able to show up at your meetings if that's possible and find out what you're doing so I can jump in on stuff.
Or Paula and I we met for coffee. And, we could even do this like once a quarter if you want. And then in between have Eric or the new community engagement person, or if there's something that Wes is working on that's hot, or Isoke, Michael, then they can just communicate with you at one of these monthly meetings and just have 10 minutes of your time. But if we at least do something that's sort of set, like once a quarter, and then with the knowing that there's in between there's gonna be a lot of discussion.
Also, Miguel, can you tell everybody how they can get in touch with the programming that's out there, like where they go to sign up for alerts and all of that?
Yeah, so I know Eric's been working on our website, so that and I wouldn't mind it, and maybe we could ask Hannah to put together just a list of this group with CSJ, and then you'll be able to see our calendars to see what's coming up. Eric, you want to share?
Yeah, I just have a question for everyone. Does everyone get the Glide emails, newsletters? Is everyone getting that information? because that's one way that, we're planning to continue communicating for folks. I know we work with Salesforce, and we have, about 2,000 volunteers who have shown interest in social justice work, and they actually tell us the area of interest that they want to work on. So we're looking at ways to be able to, expand that. How can we get, this group, their interests somewhere in our database. So when some of the things come up, then we just send an email out to that particular group. So that's one way.
So for this group, you all are family. You guys are family. So we need to set up something that's for the family.
Okay.
So that in real time, even before we send out our mass emails to the world, I want you guys to know what's happening ahead of time. And in case you're interested and you want to be a part of it. So I'll ask Hannah, who's a lot better in technology than I am, to create a group. So if you don't mind, Paula, giving us your email, we'll put you on a listserv, and then we'll send it to you in real time. Again, you got your family, so.
It'd be very helpful.
Linda?
So to build on that, Miguel, so basically you talked about a lot of wonderful things. It's mind-blowing what you're all doing. It's wonderful and inspiring and so proud. And how do we get involved? Is it through Paula? I mean, you mentioned something about going on buses, marching, becoming spokespeople. I mean, just a whole panoply of wonderful opportunities. And how do we find out more? How do we fit in?
So Marvin and I are part of an impact team that meets every week. And so Marvin and I will be tied at the hip, talking about some of these things every week. And then of course, Paula, being sort of the facilitator of this group, I think you're going to have more than enough ways of hearing about it. It's our hope that we hope and we believe that there's something in there for everybody, which is a different situation than it was 3 years ago when I felt like crap. I told James, I said, James, I think y'all hired the wrong person, because I felt like we had nothing to offer you. You guys were so ready. And then there was nothing that CSJ at that time could really say, this is how you could engage. So now we're at a point where there's a lot. And if any of you want to, be leaders in some of this stuff, this movement building that we're doing, by all means, like I said, this is family, and there's no pride in ownership from our perspective. Just it's people wanting to get together, to build a movement, to change the world. That's how it's going to happen. And just I want to put another plug. What made Glide so incredibly powerful in those early days was because of church. That the church would stand up in the 60s was unheard of. That a reverend talked about creating a hookers convention in the sanctuary was unheard of, right? So that edginess, we cannot lose sight of that. We have to have that. So I told Gene, I said, that's what makes us so different, is that we have that spiritual zeal of fighting for justice. So we are not any just old advocacy organization. And we're not just an ordinary service provider, and we're not your ordinary church. We are Glide, right? And so that's what's that is what's gonna capture the imagination of people, is when we show up. So we beg you, we want you, we need you. to be a part of this work. We want to support the work you're doing. We want that church filled, and we're doing all our part to tell people come on Sunday. But Marvin, like I said, we meet every week on Thursdays at 12:30 to 1:30, and he will be a thought partner with me on this, as well as a soul partner in this justice work. So we're very excited.
Yeah, mostly I just listen at those meetings to Miguel.
Oh, whatever.
And I think also if you go to the Center for Social Justice page, you can sign up for alerts or something. I know I registered for something, so now I get all the events that come through. So I think there's a link there on your page.
And I'd like to add one thing, if I may. We don't often talk about what a toll being a justice-oriented person takes on you. We care for the souls of everybody, but we often are the last ones to get the care. So one way that I personally can see supporting the church and the work that you're doing is to be there to help create the space for you to come and download, for you to come and discharge the energy that collects around, despair and anger and disgust and all the stuff that happens when you're trying to build a world that's more inclusive and people are not ready. And the ways that they show they're not ready can sometimes be painful. And we just get tired. So I think building community together where we come together and attend to each other lovingly, it builds a more sustainable, possibility. So I can't speak for everybody on that one, but my training is in that. And so I am very happy to help hold space around community building with a lens of healing and addressing some of our trauma that gets triggered by the work, et cetera.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make note of the time. We have about 5 more minutes. So can these next few questions be rapid fire? Quick. Pam has had her hand up for a while. Pam, could you go?
Not such rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
To say that the white anti-racist group has always been formed under your number one pillar, being changing hearts and minds. And also what you said, okay, of doing the inside work, getting smarter about all of this, and getting strong enough to deal with the shame and blame, as you noted, a place where it's okay not to know, we make mistakes with each other, we tap in and try to tap into our own divinity. We've said from the beginning, and this group's been going on for about 1.25 years now, every Friday. But we said from the beginning, this is not a group that takes action. We support your action, the action being promoted by, in particular, this group, this church group, and your whole organization on the foundation side. All we need to know is the connection. I'm always happy to take any activities to that group every Friday of anything that's coming up, because people want to take action. That just isn't the particular mission of this group. Our ours is to get smarter and stronger.
Yeah,
so we can do the action well.
Yep.
So is it, Paula just said, Center for Social Justice, alerts? Is that where I would go each week to gather up things to take on Friday?
I'm not familiar with our website, but Paula,
I'll put it in our follow-up so that everybody can get to it.
Excellent, thank you, Paul.
If I can find it again, but I'm sure I can.
Paula, I'll also share with you the link for Hunger Action Week, so you can distribute that as well.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
And again, our goal is to let you all know what's happening before it goes public, because you may want to facilitate something. You may want to lead a group, for an event. So we want to bring you in first before so you don't have to go to the website. You're already familiar with it. So we'll figure out a mechanism to do that.
Great.
That'd be great. got a lot of people in that group ready to go.
That's great. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, I just want to make one last comment and just to say, like sitting here going, this is really a dream come true
Yes.
for many of us of just wanting so much to work with you and, you know, be in this together. So this is thrilling. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't wait to get going.
I'm in agreement with her.
Amen.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you,
No.
everybody that works with you as well.
Thank you. Thank all-
Miguel, I was at your poetry event last week, and then this week I'm you had me at hello.
Well, it's all of us, right? It's all of Glide that we want to lift up.
It's family.
Yeah, it's kin, right? We're kin. We don't talk much about that, and we need to. That's what makes Glide so special. And you have an incredible leader in Marvin. You know, he's been such an advocate for all of you at our meetings, and it's a joy to be able to work with him on all this stuff. So thank you all. You know, God bless all of you for sticking it through and just being who you are, and for loving Glide as much as you do. It is seen and it is needed, and it's deeply appreciated by all of us. And thank you, Paula, for taking almost 2 hours of your Saturday about a week and a half ago to sit with me and to hear me sort of share some of this craziness that we're trying to do, and being so open to want to be a part of it. So thank you.
That one was a long time coming, so it needed 2 hours. Absolutely.
We love you, Paula.
Well, I love you all, and I can't say how proud I am of not only the racial justice group, but then also the white anti-racist group. Everybody is really not just leaning into this work, but really putting forth a sustainable effort, and that you show up every week. Doesn't matter what time of the day it is. I'm so in awe of the work that we've been doing as a community and as a group, and look forward to even more possibilities going forward. All right, I guess we can end on that note.
Can I pop something in the chat really quick before we close?
Only if you're going to sing us out, ma'am.
I will. I totally will. I just want to get this. I'm always.
That was so selfish of me, but I don't mind.
Okay, let's get this in here. Oh, I'm learning how to do stuff.
See, look at you, Sophie.
Type away, woman.
There.
While she's doing that, if I could just say thank you, Miguel. I really appreciate and love you, and everyone that's working with you. And I just want to say Miss Paula has really stepped up to the plate. I just want to echo from the lay leaders how we really appreciate all that you're doing and the group that you're leading. And I continue to marvel at the way you've grown.
Yeah, let me just echo George. I think this is really the blueprint. You know, our congregational life groups, we have over 15. Some of them formed during COVID. And so they are both support for one another, they are community for one another. And the theme that they gather in is the sacred container that holds them. And then this thing happens where they want to learn about community organizing, and how do I deploy this yoga, and how do I deploy this meditation onto the city. And so this is what we are hoping, that when our groups get to that place where the Zoom rooms can't contain them anymore, you know, that we do get some, you know, community organizing training specifically for the ways in which they've been moving. And I know that's a part of this partnership, you know, that we're building. Like, how do we move our congregational life groups and our congregation, you know, out into the streets? I think the work that we're doing is keeping folks warmed and ready to go. But having the capacity to lead them out is really important to us. So I'm appreciative of that becoming clearer and clearer between us.
Marvin, can I share with them a little secret that you and I have? So I'm going to share it with all of you anyway.
Miguel,
You
So-
know, when you ask him a question, he's gonna do, he's
I
gonna be the
know.
contrarian.
From how far back?
So Marvin and I have been conspiring.
Okay.
Where in the gay community, when something happens to the gay community, everyone automatically knows that night, 5 o'clock, Harvey Milk Plaza on Market and Castro. Everybody knows. No matter what it is, like if it's a decision, if it's a good or bad decision, everyone shows up. Well, when it comes to racial justice, when something happens, we want everybody to come to the corner of Ellis and Taylor. That everyone will know that it's on that corner, in that building, in that sacred space, it will be a place to heal. Where politicians will be begging us to get in to say something. That everybody knows Glide is that beacon of light right in that corner. So that's what Marvin and I are working on. And so we're letting you all know because you're a family. But we also want you to be excited about that notion that it is a corner of hope and of light and of incredible, incredible love. And that everybody will know 5 o'clock, you show up there. So stay tuned.
and with that, I'll turn it over to Isoke to take us out.
Okay. That which touches me most is that I had a chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until, but we do get to rest though, for reals.
Amen. Thank you, Isoke.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Amen.
Thank you,
everyone.
all of you. And until we
You all
meet
of
again,
you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful night.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.